Another lesson that Moses learned, as you know, when he saw that the people needed deliverance, he went out and grabbed a hold of somebody trying to get them to stop doing what they were doing, and he got so zealous in his doing that his hands went up around the person's neck, and before he realized what he had done, he actually had murdered someone. And he realized, I think he was quickly catching on that this wasn't really God's plan for him, but in his zeal, and how many of us would acknowledge being zealous but wacko? Any of us out there, at a time or two, you're just so sure God's given you something, and so you go and do it, and what you end up doing is strangulating somebody. It's really sort of a strange story in a way, in that he realizes he's in trouble, so he tries to bury the body in the sand. And I guess it was a shallow grave and wasn't enough so anyway, well, what's the lesson that we learn from this? What's the principle that we learn? That when God calls us to do something, He still wants us to do it by His Spirit and not taking matters into our own hands. And Moses surely could have said, yeah, but God told me to be a deliverer. Yes, but that's not the full story. He did it on his own. And then later on, when he finally, after he gets married and he's going to come back and be another great deliverer, he hasn't circumcised his son. And so here he's going to go and try to be a deliverer, and yet himself not live according to the covenant that God had laid out for him. And so because of that, God was opposed to him, and, well, I'm trying to actually get to the book of Judges, and I'm lost somewhere now in the book of Genesis. Okay, and Exodus. Anyway, you get the point. There are principles to be learned. And so if I'm going to be a maturing and developing son of God, I get to read in the Old Testament, in the midst of the historical record, I get to read about pitfalls that I might fall into, about tendencies that I might have, because these were the same tendencies that got pointed out in the Scripture. So could we just leave it at this for my introduction, at least the introduction to my introduction? Could we leave it at this, that if you or I try to fulfill the calling and the purpose of God, and yet do so without regard to the biblical counsel and instruction, we are going to end up as off base and out of it as we see so many characters in the Scripture. And so we read these stories, not just for their historicity, but we read these stories for the spiritual instruction that they give to us.